Here in America this weekend is Father's Day. When you're estranged from your parents, if you have a toxic family dynamic, if you have narcissistic or codependent parents, it's a tough one. There are lots of estranged adult children that are out there that feel orphaned right now by their parents. I'm one of them. Both of my parents are living and I feel like an orphan. At this time last year, I was about a month out from getting married. And as someone who has grown up in a very toxic household, as you can imagine, a month before you're getting married, there is probably would be months and months and months of a lot of toxic behaviors coming from those toxic family members leading up to someone getting married. By this point last year, I was already no contact with my mom, and I was really struggling to maintain contact with my dad. The constant barrage of abuse and harassment and anger, which had always really been prevalent across most of my life, but had really escalated from the moment that I had got engaged. I had always known my entire life that if I ever got engaged and got married, that I wanted a really small wedding that probably didn't involve my family if possible. I always felt like eloping was probably going to be the best option because I just cannot trust my family to behave themselves. And while I always knew that was going to be true, I didn't know it was going to be true that I would be no contact with them altogether by the time my wedding day came around. For those of you who don't know, I have a narcissistic mother, and my dad is really codependent on my mom, even though they've been divorced for about 30 years. And in all of the events that led up to me going no contact with my mom around Mother's Day last year, my father was really trying to step in to try to really voice his opinion about how much he felt like I was in the wrong. And the thing that he thought I was in the wrong about was that I have been speaking out about the abuse that I've endured from my narcissistic mother across the course of my life. What he would not point out was wrong was that the actual abuse itself was wrong. He would still claim to this day that me using the word abuse is abusive. My father and I had many conversations on this. Now, me being raised by a narcissist turned into a people pleaser, and even though I was on sort of the fritz with my dad, Father's Day was coming up and I had a really nice photograph. I purchased it for him and went and had it rush framed to give to him as a gift. I went to his house, and there were a couple other things I was doing with some of my siblings, but also wanted to give him his gift. And before I could even fully get into the house, he told me I was no longer welcome in his home. While my father and I were on the fritz for a long time, I'd always sort of had hope because I have never put him into the category of being a narcissist himself, just someone who's being manipulated by a narcissist, a codependent. And I always had hope that he would snap out of it. But obviously in that moment, I lost all hope that he would ever see clearly ever again. And it was particularly harmful and hurtful to me because I had told him on numerous occasions that my narcissistic brother and my narcissistic mother were doing everything that they could to eventually one day, they're playing the long game. I was like, this is going to take several years. I had this conversation with him about 3 years ago. I said it will take several years, but their end goal is to make sure that you never speak to me again. And he promised me, he looked me in my eyes and promised me that would never happen. And here we are. So I decided that if he was going to stand so firmly in the defense of abusers, my specific abusers, that there's no way I can maintain contact with somebody like that. Even though I don't think that he was the active perpetrator, he is reinforcing that abuse by standing by my abusers. And I've come to learn since then that basically he doesn't care whether I live or die either. Actually, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not going to go into detail, but I know that. Learning that part of it, that's been really hard. And if you are also an estranged adult child, then you understand what it's like to grieve the loss of parents that you deserved to have. That was one of maybe the most painful things that I have ever had to go through in my life. So even though I'm grieving the loss of parents that I wish and hoped and deserved to have had, I'm going to be okay. I now only allow people in my life who love me and support me and who would never stand by somebody who abuses me. So if you are an estranged adult child from your parents coming into this Father's Day weekend, I hope that you take the time to find some peace and happiness for yourself. I hope you know that it was not your fault and you didn't deserve it, and you're going to be okay.